The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
This is a fun topic. Oh my gosh, Robin. This is something you might know about me. I think I've shared everything with you and the listeners, but there's one thing that I want to share right now.
Okay.
It was my affinity for the Viewmaster. Do you remember the Viewmaster?
I do. I love the Viewmaster.
Oh my gosh, you did. I loved it.
Yeah.
So I would take that Viewmaster, I would put in that little round disc, and both eyes would see two pictures, and everything would be in 3D.
Yes.
I went to Disneyland in California from Long Island, New York. I traveled all around the world.
Yeah.
And I imagined going to all these places. I had no idea that in the future there would be the opportunity to literally put on a device, not really that unlike the Viewmaster, but way better, because you not only can see things in 3D, you can turn your head and see whatever's behind you, but you can hear things, and guess what? You can see them live now. Holy mackerel. All right, I got to figure this out. So there's a book that is #1 right now. I found it on Amazon. It is called The History of the Future. It is written by Blake Harris, and Blake is our guest. He's a filmmaker, a journalist, a contributor to ESPN, IGN, Fast Company, Film, the AV Club, Paul Scheer's How Did This Get Made? He's got a podcast. One of his novels is being adapted for TV. Oh my gosh. Let's see. The History of the Future. Oculus, Facebook, and the revolution that swept virtual reality. Blake Harris, this is a fascinating topic to me ever since I was a kid with the Viewmaster. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, Larry. Thanks for having me on. And I'm the same way. The Viewmaster was a big part of my childhood, and kind of to your point, the VR stuff today is almost like the Viewmaster 2.0, where you can actually step into whatever we used to see when we were younger.
Yeah, the Viewmaster people are right now kicking themselves. Why didn't we think of this? Right? Oh, my gosh. So, at Christmas time, I was looking for a gift for my son. And they had this, I don't know if it was Oculus, it was one of them, and I tried it out at Best Buy. And I was looking at a concert, like I was sitting in the front seat of this concert. I can't remember if it was Springsteen or what it was. But they said that it wasn't live when I looked at it, but the guy trying to sell it to me said, you're going to be able to do this live. Is that true?
Yeah, it's a bold new future, a brave new world that we're headed towards. And, the book, which is largely about Oculus and its founding, started off as a game company, but less than 2 years later, they were acquired by Facebook for $3 billion. And Facebook interest, which was surprising at the time, was because of the stuff that you're describing, live concerts and the ability for maybe you to be in Florida, your son to be back in Long Island, and you guys to put on the headset and be at a concert together.
Oh,
just like that.
That is cool. Now, this is maybe a dumb question, but would we be able to see each other? I mean, or no?
No, not a dumb question at all. I mean, that's a big part of it, the social aspect of virtual reality. And yeah, as of now, you guys would be avatars, digital representations of yourself. And, perhaps that's not an exact replica of what you look like, though. As your graphics get better, it'll be more and more improved. But like one of the interesting things that you sort of don't even realize is because you are wearing this headset on your face, it tracks all of your movements. So we all have different mannerisms, and just being next to someone, it tracks every little thing, and so you do feel like you're with someone, even if it's not an exact digital replica of them at this time.
So Robin and I are both old enough to remember when color TV was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I remember I remember thinking, what could possibly be next? This has got to be as good as it gets. But this is what's next, isn't it? This whole thing we're seeing right now.
I certainly think so. That's why I was happy to spend the past 4 years working on this book. But the color TV, I think, is a good example because, as someone who probably consumes about 10 hours of TV a day, often on the background when I'm writing. But, color TV seems like the greatest thing ever, and I would say that it is. But at the same time, the innovation alone is nothing without the television shows. And then how do you get people to develop television shows when nobody has a TV? And so there's this whole chicken and egg problem that fortunately we've gotten past, and now there's a lot of television content. But that's sort of what we're seeing with VR, and what makes it so fun for me to sort of write behind the scenes about the finagling and how do you actually launch this industry.
And now we have seen chairs that were built for specific video games used by gamers, and some of them shake and vibrate. Is this the next step? Are they going to be sold as a package for the chairs and the headset?
Oh, it's a really great question, because sort of for the hardcore group, there are things like treadmills that you could have where you can run and actually stay in one place, and there's haptic suits and gloves, and there's all sorts of stuff for the hardcore gamer or the hardcore user. I'm skeptical that that's going to go mainstream. I don't know that my mom's ever going to want to be in a chair that shakes to represent what it's like to be in that concert. But that's kind of what's so great about virtual reality. And being this next thing is there's just different tiers of immersion, and if you want to make that investment, or if that's sort of what you're interested in, there's going to be someone who's going to cater to you.
Gina, there was a story we had in Six Flags over Georgia, I think, at the theme park. They had a roller coaster where you're in an actual roller coaster, but you're wearing a headset, and your experience is not that you're on a roller coaster, but that you're on a plane. And the plane is crashing, and then Superman comes and saves you, and then some bad guy fights him, and he's got to let go, and then you start falling again. But then he comes and saves you again, and isn't that amazing? I think that's an amazing idea.
It really all is, and it's all sort of just based on this idea of tricking your brain, which maybe sounds a little nefarious, but I know the people behind the scenes, and they're doing cool things. And to your point, having Superman save the day, it's just. There's nothing like it out there. It's sort of like, again, I think that your comparison to color television was so important, because how do you describe that to someone who hasn't really experienced color television? It's so hard. You almost have to experience it for yourself.
Right. That is all right. So there was a sweet story also. I wanted to share this with you. You probably know about it already, but it was a veterans parade, and there was a group of veterans who were in a nursing home, and they were not able to attend the parade. And so they gave them all these virtual reality headsets, and the camera that they were looking through was on one of the floats in the parade. And the people at the parade knew that there were guys and ladies in a nursing home that were virtually on that float, and they were all waving at them and throwing them kisses and flowers and thanking them. I mean, and you could see the look on the faces of the older folks that were in the nursing home. I mean, they were really moved by that. That's something they couldn't experience for real, but they were able to do it virtually.
Yeah, really, the sky is the limit. That was what appealed to me. And a lot of times when I talk about writing, I always think about my grandma. Whether she doesn't know about virtual reality, and she didn't know about Sega and Nintendo, my last book, but I want to write a book that's interesting to her, just because it's a good human story. And I remember one of the things early on that I told her about virtual reality and why she should care, that sort of convinced her, was saying that, imagine if she could just put on a headset and go to Italy, where she went on her honeymoon with my grandpa, and walk around where she's not really walking too much today. And then I could put on a headset, and she can give me a tour and show me all the places that her and Grandpa went.
Oh, wouldn't that be awesome? That would be awesome. Yeah.
You had also conducted a lot of interviews with the key players. How did they accept your approaching them, as this would be a good thing?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, so, technologically, I think this thing is a marvel, and we're all sort of wowed by it. But the book itself is really just about the human drama behind it, and it starts in this incredible way in 2012 with this 19-year-old kid named Palmer Luckey. He's a homeschooled inventor, tinkerer, genius, visionary, and he is building headsets. And the visual that I always imagine, and he confirmed was pretty accurate, was that he's living in this RV trailer, this 19-foot trailer in Long Beach, California, and his trailer basically looks like Walter White's trailer or meth van on Breaking Bad, except instead of meth, Palmer's van is filled with virtual reality headsets, and he's building these things. And at the time, as much as we all remember VR from the 90s or beyond, or the ViewMaster, from a business standpoint, pretty much everyone had given up on virtual reality. It was sort of a technological punchline similar to flying cars or jetpacks. And but he, believed in this technology and launched this company called Oculus. And in less than 2 years, they sold to Facebook for billions of dollars.
Wow!
And And so I wanted to get that story and figure out what's it like for a 19-year-old kid. What was that passion that drove him to this? How did he start this company? And it's just this great story with this ensemble cast. And fortunately, I had that first book, which made my life a lot easier than the first time around, because they all liked that and were willing to speak with me. And for the most part, it was a pretty good experience, except that I mentioned that they were acquired by Facebook, and so Facebook is the parent company now. And then there were some real problems down the road, and my relationship with Facebook ended poorly, especially after they fired that kid who founded the company.
Oh my gosh, really? Let's see. The book came out yesterday, and it's already #1. Let's see. I'm looking at the Amazon page. #1 in virtual reality. Well, that makes sense. This is an exciting thing for you as well. It's also #2 in computers and technology, and #3 in general and reference. That's probably a huge category, general and reference. So #3.
Yeah.
So can I ask you a tactical question, since you're a filmmaker?
Sure.
I have a few questions based on that. So will we see complete movies this way in the future?
That's an awesome question, because that was kind of one of the first things I thought of. Aside from writing about this, I thought, oh, what can I do with technology to tell stories? And the answer, first of all, is yes. But in an interesting way that, you yourself as a storyteller and entertainer maybe, would kind of come to the same realization that I would about thinking about this medium, is just that when we tell stories, whether it's writing or whether it's particularly with filmmaking, as a director, as a storyteller, you're basically deciding where the audience is going to look at all times. But what's interesting and powerful about VR is also what's a bit of a challenge for a filmmaker, is that you are putting someone in an immersive environment, and like you said at the top of the show, you can look over your shoulder. That's what makes it different than the Viewmaster.
Yeah.
And so it's much more like a video game in that respect, like an open world video game, where you can't say, all right, this is a love story, I want you to look at the girl right now and falling in love with her. Like, you can't really control where the person's going to look. You can use visual cues and audio cues, but the sorry for the rant, but the short answer is that yes, a lot of filmmakers, that was part of the strategic idea of these companies, is to get filmmakers making content, and it's just been interesting to see what a different experience it is. But we are going to see a lot of different content in this new medium, and I think a good analogy is the difference between plays, like theatrical plays, and movies. And the original movies were kind of just like recorded plays until you started to realize, oh wow, we can actually do different things with this medium. We can cut and we can pause, and that's sort of where we are now, which is exciting.
But will we be able to eat popcorn comfortably with that Google on our face?
Good question.
Well, that's the big question. Well, here's the thing. You can have virtual popcorn, and that's just calorie-free. So you can have as much as you want.
So where would you be as the director? I mean, how would we not be able to turn around and see you? That would be crazy. There's the act, but behind me.
Good question.
Yeah, I mean, you're sitting there, and I'm looking at Blake. Hey, there's Blake. He's directing the movie. Right?
No, you're right. I mean, it like you basically have to be elsewhere, and that's why up to this point, most of what has taken off is documentary filmmaking. Because you could put a camera. It's called like a 360 degree camera, because it records a full panorama. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, if you're the director and you're there beside the camera yelling action and cut, you're going to be in the movie. So it presents a technical challenge.
It is so cool. So there was a story the other day, and I wanted to ask you about this. And what it said, and I think I understood it, is the device will know where I'm looking. And the pixels will be more concentrated there, because it makes no sense to have pixels all around my head that I'm not even looking at. So it saves power or something.
Yep.
What is that? What is that? Am I right about that?
No, you're totally right, and I'm impressed. It's kind of complicated, but yeah, I mean, one of the reasons that VR has taken this long to take off, and why we didn't just go from the Viewmaster to where we are today, is because of the technological challenges, and in particular, like the horsepower to make this work. And so, essentially, virtual reality is giving you a world where you can look around and over your shoulder 360 degrees, but it's much better if the computer doesn't have to actually render all of that, because that takes up a lot of memory. So what you're describing is that they can sort of focus on the parts that they actually need to render, because VR is tracking your head for the purposes of showing you things, and also can know where to devote its resources. And at the same time, I think it's pretty relevant that since this is owned by Facebook and there's some concerns right now, it does know where you're looking. And so from an advertising standpoint, that'll be helpful to them, but something that maybe we should be a little bit concerned about. And if they run an ad, it can tell if you're actually paying attention to the ad, or whether you're engaged with the ad, or whether you're looking at things. So, there's the whole dystopian future concern. But it also, again, there's a lot of benefits to it, and it taking advantage of, allocating its resources.
I have an awkward question. You probably, just by me saying that, know what I'm going to ask. We heard that the video recorder world was catapulted because of pornography. Nobody wants to admit it, but that's what we heard. Is that true for this too? Does that, and again, this is, I'm sure, an awkward question, but does that play a role in the reason this is going to be big? And I know nobody wants to admit it, but what do you think? No,
I knew exactly, or I suspected as soon as you said this is an awkward question, that's where you were headed.
Right.
And it's an excellent question, because that was one of the first things I thought of. Over these past 4 years, these people at the company are talking about that in order to sell these VR headsets, they need a killer app, meaning the thing that makes you buy this headset. And I'm just thinking the whole time, what was the killer app for personal computers? It was pornography, or at least for the internet.
Seems like it, yeah.
And unfortunately, I feel like the people at Oculus and at HTC, where they make the Vive, or at least especially at Oculus and Facebook, they are not willing to ask that question, or at least their answer to it is that they don't want anything that's not suitable for work on there right now. And Facebook has made a big push to not allow, like plastic guns, like light guns, like for Duck Hunt, or basically stuff for gamers, and also pornography, which me always being like a free market, anything goes sort of guy. I'm a little bit bummed about that, but I think that is going to actually, at this point, it's holding back the adoption, and to your point, at some point, that is going to be a really big deal, because of course, I've never, watched pornography myself, but I've heard that the more immersive it is, it's probably more enjoyable.
But if there's money to be made in it, maybe a country that's not as prudish as ourselves, maybe they will be the ones to bring it up, and then it's going to be like Viewmaster. They only kick themselves. Why didn't we do that?
Since this is since websites and accounts and bank accounts get hacked, is there any fear that using this, it's going to be hacked?
Oh wow!
Another good question. Yeah, I think that is a valid concern. I think that Facebook has shown over the past few years that there are reasons to have security concerns, and then, even just because, like we talked about, virtual reality is essentially tricking your brain. It presents all sorts of options. So taking what you were just talking about, pornography, and then, there's the sort of deep fake stuff now where you can mimic people's audios or visuals, and you can just manipulate so much. In this case, you're actually manipulating realities or perceived realities.
Yeah.
And it is something that we should all be very concerned about. Fortunately, at this point, I don't have any good examples, because I don't know in what ways it would be manipulated, but those hackers are clever and usually ahead of the game.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that we should be careful about and concerned about.
Oh, I know exactly what will happen. I'll be watching, Bonanza, and Lex Luthor will come on and say, "Hello, I'm now taking control of this unless you send me 5,000 crypto coins."
This looks like a really neat doorway to an encounter with the stars of the movie, or the behind-the-scenes people with the movie, because there could probably be set up virtual pre-release parties, and then a small number of gamers or viewers would be able to really enter this small release party and actually have their questions answered and be able to meet some of the stars virtually.
Exactly. I love how you're thinking where it's kind of just a few years forward. Imagine one of my favorite movies is Iron Man. Imagine you're in a virtual theater, so you're in my little apartment here, 400 square feet, but you suddenly put on a headset, and now I have a 50-foot screen, I'm watching Iron Man, and then like poof, Robert Downey Jr. or a representation of him appears next to me,
Right.
and not only can he tell me, oh, this is what it was like to film this opening scene, but I can say, hey, what do you think of the Avengers 3? And in the same way of like Siri and these voice assistants, with artificial intelligence, he can potentially answer questions, and it'll be almost like a real conversation. So the sky's really the limit.
In addition to what we've been talking about, it sounds like this would be a natural tool for NASA and also for the medical people. I don't know. One would have to be really small, and one would be, millions of miles away or something.
No, it's a great point. I mean, NASA and the military applications are probably the only places where VR has sort of existed over the past 20-plus years, where it didn't really, quote-unquote, die like it did for those of us consumers who remember Nintendo's Virtual Boy and other failures from the 90s. But the medical training and other enterprise possibilities are going to be huge just for training. I mean, from a medical standpoint, instead of actually having to acquire a cadaver for a med student to practice, I was talking to somebody yesterday who is in medical school, and they had to do like 500 simulations in virtual reality. And then when they actually got into surgery, or at least into an emergency environment, they at least, they felt like they had been there before 500 times.
Your book is doing really well. You'll be able to move out of that 400 square foot apartment soon.
Yes.
So I want to give the one you sent us. I want to give it away. So call me if you would like the one that Blake sent us. It's called The History of the Future. What's the subtitle again? Oculus, Facebook, and the Revolution That Swept Virtual Reality. Call me if you want the one that was sent to us. I'll take a caller at random. 622-9622. I found it on Amazon. Do you want to direct us to your own website?
Sure, it's BlakeJHarris.com, and you can find me on Twitter at BlakeJHarrisNYC, and I love answering questions about the book or the future, and thanks for having me on, Larry.
I love the picture on the cover with the dinosaur tail. I think that really, really relates to the fast movement.
Yep, awesome.
Well, that'd be cool, too. I mean, go back in time, I guess. I mean, not really, but virtually do that, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, my gosh.
Absolutely.
My son has something.
Any place, anytime.
My son has something. I don't know what his is called, but his is really better than the cardboard thing I have. I have a cardboard thing.
I think this could help the stores, too. I mean, we just had a news report yesterday that the Payless Shoe Store is closing all of its stores. Wouldn't it be great if you could go online and virtually try on the shoes, put your foot measurement in there? Because sometimes one size... if you're one size in one fashion, you're another size in another fashion.
Only women would think of that question. Yeah.
No, but it's a great question.
It is. Yeah.
There's the practical purposes of doing the medical training, but you can also go into a virtual Payless and try on 20 different shoes, and they don't even need to have it in stock. And then, they can deliver it to you later that day. You can maybe even customize the colors that you want. It really is going to be an exciting world. So it makes me wonder, what is going to exist in physical brick and mortar stores at all?
Right, and in stadiums. I mean, think about a football game.
Oh yeah,
nobody's going to be there. The better shot is the one you get at home, right?
That's right.
I mean, I already feel that way as a devout football fan and baseball fan. Like, I'd much rather watch it at home in HD. But yeah, going forward, who's actually going to be there when you can just tailgate at home and have a great experience?
Oh my gosh, yeah, and you can get the best seat in the house at a Bruce Springsteen concert or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Blake, that fun topic. Thank you so much. Again, the book is called The History of the Future. Go to his website, BlakeJHarris.com. Thank you, Blake.
Thanks, guys.
You are welcome. We'll be right back.
Partly sunny, warm and humid on this Wednesday with a chance of a shower along the coast. The high 81 at the coast, 86 inland. Partly cloudy and very mild Wednesday night with a shower in places. The low 62 inland, 69 along the coast. For Thursday, times of clouds.